Hi, this is Tom Mira from World Class Coaching with another in our series of animated drills. Now, this one is similar to the 5 versus 2 variations that I talked about in the past, but I want to share something different with these rondos. We're going to talk about double rondos today. So when you're playing a rondo or a possession game, and when we talk about rondos, we're just talking about a keep away game with an advantage to the attacking team, then these are your traditional ways of playing it. You've got 4 versus 1, you've got over here, you've got 4 versus 2 over here. You could just as easily have 5 versus 2, adding a player here. So we're playing 5 players against 2, keeping possession on the outside, looking for splits. So there's all of those different ways that you can play the regular 5 versus 2. There's also some good variations to this that I haven't talked about before, and one of them is to have these players move. So you can have the on-the-ball player move, so we're passing and following, and when we're passing and following, we're doing it to support the ball. So maybe we're making this pass here, and then we're supporting the ball in this direction. And then when this player makes this through pass, maybe this player then supports by making the run here to try to receive the ball back from the player he passed to. When that happens, obviously, we've got to fill the empty spaces. So this player would then slide in and fill the empty spot left by the player that just split the path or split the 2 defenders and found the other side of the field. So we've got some movement now where we're passing and moving to support the ball. So, that's one way to vary this and make it a bit different. Now, if we want to really vary it, then we can talk about adding a neutral player as well. Adding a neutral player, now what we're doing is we're basically creating a midfielder here in the center, and we'll just put a player in here. We'll make that player a different color just to make them stand out, make the neutral player a white player. So now we've got this player in the middle. So instead of having to split all the way between the two, we can play into this player, and then this player can play out to another player on the outside. And by playing to that player on the outside, now we've beat those 2 defenders, we've split them, and we've played out to a different angle. So adding a neutral player is a great way to adjust the game and add some variety, and also makes it more functional. Now, you can rotate these players as we did before, having this player make the run here, but now we can also have off the ball switches. So we could have this player checking in to the middle before this pass is made. So when this player checks in the middle, this ball hasn't been played yet, so we'll take that out. We'll take that out. So we can have this player check in the middle, and then the neutral player could check to the outside. So we create some movement, and we make it more difficult for these defenders to keep track of us because we've got one player checking out, one player checking in, still keeping our space, still keeping our shape, but now we've got player movement both on the outside and on the inside. You can also have player movement on the weak side. So if you've got the ball on that side being passed, you could have these 2 players switching ends just to draw the attention of these defenders. So when the ball gets switched to this side, instead of this player, let's say they checked up and showed for the ball here. So instead of that player staying there and showing for the ball and trying to receive the ball to feet down this line, we could have the player cutting across, which is going to draw this defender, even if just for a moment, back to the middle, and then we've got this player here checking into the space that was left by them. So rotation on the ball, rotation on the weak side, rotation with the midfielder that we've created with the neutral player. So now my favorite variation to this is to turn this into a double rondo. So we're making this 2 games in one, basically. So what we'll have is we'll have the player over here, and we'll have different colored teams. So for example, maybe we change these 2 and we put these 2 players on the blue team together. And then we take these 2 players and we're going to put these players on the red team together. Over here we've got the same thing where we want to take 2 players and pair them up. We could have them in different colored pennies. There's something to be said for having the players stay in the same color but just know who their partners are. Then when they're switching, they just have to be aware of who they're switching with, why they're switching, when they're switching. So there's great awareness, work that you can do if you just keep the players in the same color. But for clarity in this, I'll go ahead and change them. So what we've got is we've got 2 grids where we've got a rondo going on. Over here, we've got 4 versus 0. And so with 4 versus 0, they're just passing around the outside. You can do it with rotation. You can do it without rotation, just passing. To begin with, I would suggest without rotation because they have to be aware of what's going on in this area. So over here, we've got them playing possession. We've got a neutral player that we've added. That neutral player can then play out to the other side. We want to try to work through the neutrals. Whenever we have one, we want to encourage the players to use those neutral players as they would like a central midfield player. So when the ball is being passed in this area, there's pressure on it. If the yellow team wins the ball, let's say that ball is intercepted here by the yellow team, then what will happen is the team that lost possession, so the blue team, they're going to transition to the other grid. So they're going to become defenders on this other side of the grid. And what happens to the yellow team is that the yellow team then takes their place by moving to the outside. So if we just quickly move those players around so you can see that these players now come over here to defend. We'll switch them around to face the right direction. These players come over to defend while these players then open up to play possession. Now, the neutral player, because they're supporting the ball and the ball needs the most support when it's under pressure, we're going to have that neutral player switch sides as well. So that neutral player is going to come over here. So we're going to end up now with that 5 versus 2, basically 4 versus 2 plus the neutral on the other side. So that awareness came in where the blue players had to be prepared to transition. When they lost it, both players needed to know they had to go. These players in this second grid had to be aware of what was going on, so they know if there's a turnover, then they have to be ready for pressure to come and for support to come in this neutral player that's also coming over. Now, once the ball is over there, now we've got that same possession activity that's happening over here, that same rondo we're passing around the outside. Now it's just happening in the other grid. So when a team loses possession and the blue team wins the ball, then we've got the same situation where black made the bad pass. So now black has to head over to that side to defend, and the neutral player has to slide. And so we create a transition to the game. So we've got a lot of awareness that needs to be, everybody's got to be on. Everybody's got to be paying attention and be really aware of what's going on in both areas to keep possession of their ball, be aware of what the other side is doing so they're ready for pressure to come if they're just playing 4v0. And we have to have that quick transition because the best time to win the ball is when you've just lost the ball. So if they can get to the other grid and say a bad pass is made to a player standing near that transition line, near that space between the two, if we've got a ball that's played into this player, then these transitioning players coming over on the black team can have a much easier job of winning the ball if they're aware of that and if the yellow team and the red team isn't aware of it. So, this transition rondo, this double rondo, if you will, is a great way to add complexity to the game, really train transition and train awareness. So I hope you like this one. Please try this out with your teams and let us know how it goes. Thanks a lot.